What if the gates never opened? What if the world beyond Nevermore stayed a rumor, a ghost behind iron bars? What if Wednesday didn't choose the road back to ordinary life, but the staircase that spiraled down? What if the academy that tried to tame monsters asked her to become one? And what if love arrived too late to save her? What if Wednesday never left Nevermore? Night huddled over Nevermore like a velvet bruise. The lake was a shard of obsidian glass, holding a moon that refused to look away. Gargoyles were patient outlines on the eaves, waiting for the moment a statue becomes a witness. Beneath them stood Wednesday Addams, dressed in black that devoured starlight, her gaze steady as a held breath. Behind her, the gates of Nevermore were open, gaping jaws of wrought iron. Beyond, the mortal world coiled like the cool promise of escape. The path was damp, the air braided with the pallid perfume of wet pine. If she stepped forward, she would be swallowed by a different kind of dark. Taxis and streetlights and the mechanical hum of a life where monsters learned to pass. She did not move. The academy sighed. Wind nudged the trees. Something that might have been a raven laughed. Wednesday felt the laugh in her bones. A message, or perhaps an invitation. She thought of the months that had sculpted her into the creature the world insisted she must not be. Brutally honest, carefully cruel, forensic in her love. She thought of blood under fingernails, of prophecies folded like paper knives, of a hide's kiss turned to a weapon. She thought of a friend who hugged like sunlight with a pulse, Enid Sinclair, and how warmth was sometimes more frightening than knives. Wednesday turned, not toward the open gate, but toward the high black mouth of Nevermore's main hall. Doors opened as if afraid not to. The chandeliers kindled themselves one by one, a procession of small coronations. "I will not be ordinary," she said, and the building made a sound like a pleased animal. She stepped inside. Somewhere in the west wing, a clock resumed ticking, as if a pulse had just returned. Morning, thin and anemic, found her in the library that smelled like a cathedral, built of mildew and secrets. Dust drifted in lit columns, a funeral for moths. Wednesday preferred libraries because books were skulls that remembered. She moved like a rumor between shelves, trailing a fingertip across spines tattooed with languages that had died kindly and those that had needed killing. A narrow ladder she had not noticed before, narrow as a throat, leaned against a section stamped "Archive Restricted." The sign was not a warning. It was a dare. She climbed. The rungs trembled under her, or perhaps that was the building's anticipation. At the top was a short corridor, disguised as shelving, a whisper carved into architecture. Her hand met a seam in the wood, a cool brass catch, and a door surrendered. It was a long room with no windows. Lamps awakened when she stepped across the threshold. On the far wall, there hung a portrait of 4 figures in black, 2 women and 2 men. Their faces were pale islands. Their eyes had the calm of predators who no longer needed to hunt. A plaque read, "The Founders of Nevermore, 1791. Beneath it, in smaller script, "We are not guests of the dark. We are its hosts." Wednesday's mouth tilted like a blade just discovering itself. She approached the desk at the center, where a ledger lay under glass. The cover was cracked leather, veined like a sleeping palm. Her reflection was a black coin on its surface. "Hello?" she said to the room. "I hope you bite." A key, bronze green with age, rested in the ledger's lock. The odd part was not that the key waited. It was that the key did not wait for just anyone. She turned it, feeling the satisfying creep of Old mechanisms waking, the ledger opened like a throat clearing to speak. Entries bled across the pages, ink that shimmered when it caught the breath of a lamp. The earliest pages were tidy. By the middle, the handwriting grew impatient, slashed, ecstatic. Names, talents, incidents, not punishments, but experiments. Not students, but instruments. She read for an hour, a day, a soft collapse of time. 1794. Do not dilute the outcast, refine it. 1821. Obedience is a leash. We prefer a spine. 1913. The raven is an inevitability the school will craft when a cracked century approaches. Wednesday halted. The ink was dry, and yet she could feel the damp of the idea. The raven, capitalized as if it were not a creature, but an office, a seat, a throne. She read on. 1937. Candidates showed double pupils during night terrors, the strongest reject comfort. Watch for the one who makes grief recreational and precision a religion. A mirror waited at the end of the room, gilded, obscene. Wednesday went to it because she could sense the narrative begging for the gesture. She looked into herself, and in the pupils something small moved. Perhaps dust, perhaps prophecy. She refused to blink first. Footsteps padded down the corridor beyond the fake shelves, quick, familiar, wearing a nervous hope that made Wednesday's teeth ache, with a contradictory urge to protect and to wound. When? The voice was a worried sunrise. Enid Sinclair, hair a candy ride disciplined into soft waves, sweater the color of a blush that survived a storm. She framed herself in a doorway, eyes wide, mouth brave. You didn't leave, Enid said, as if the fact were a verdict and a prayer. Obviously. Wednesday closed the ledger, as if she were breaking the neck of a bird, gently. Have you come to escort me to breakfast or an intervention? Enid crossed the room in small, careful steps, the way you approach a wild thing that is pretending to be asleep, to check if you're okay and to say I'm glad that you stayed. Wednesday felt something ancient shift, like a dead monarch turning in a tomb. She catalogued the sensation, then refused it. I am not an urn for your relief. I know, Enid stopped before the founder's portrait, but you don't have to be a martyr either. Wednesday studied her. The werewolf had learned a new courage, still soft but knotted with muscle. That, more than sunlight smiles, made her dangerous. Would you like to know a secret? Wednesday asked. Enid's nod was a little stab of eagerness. This school, Wednesday said, is not a sanctuary. It is a kiln. Enid glanced at the ledger, at the key yawning in its throat. A kiln for what? Wednesday smiled, which looked on her face like a cut closing. For something already hard, to make it lethal. When? Enid whispered, not afraid, not yet. She took Wednesday's hand. The electric ache of it flashed up Wednesday's arm and nested under her ribs, beating a bird into her chest. She did not pull away. Promise me you'll come to breakfast, Enid said, just to keep some rituals. Rituals can save people. Rituals keep people predictable, Wednesday said, which is why they are useful. She slipped her fingers free. I will consider your request. Enid accepted that as victory because she had learned that Wednesday's concessions were sculpted from bedrock. She turned to go. At the door, she paused. Whatever kiln you think this is, don't let it burn the part of you that— That what? Wednesday asked, the words a little too sharp. That writes music on typewriters because pianos are too obvious, Enid said softly. That part. Enid left. The door died shut. Wednesday went back to the ledger, and the founders watched her as if a ceremony had begun. Days became a rhythm, a performance of normalcy measured in razors. Wednesday attended classes the way a surgeon attends a wedding, aware of how quickly celebration can become incision. The teachers accepted her return with a collective blink, the way people accept a storm that decides it will not pass after all, but set up a permanent address. Xavier sketched in charcoal that made the air smell smudged. He watched Wednesday with the complicated hunger of someone who craved absolution and ammunition and would accept either. Bianca was a blade polishing itself on the fact of Wednesday's existence. Eugene buzzed like a secret he couldn't help but keep, fiercely loyal to whoever looked lonelier. Ajax learned how to not break everything he touched and broke it anyway. Life in a haunted terrarium. Wednesday wrote again in the evenings, not with ink. Ink was too mortal, but with tasks. Task 1, map the subterranean. Nevermore had cellars like a memory palace built by a vulture. She found a stairwell behind a tapestry that depicted a wedding between a witch and her shadow. It led down into a corridor of stone, damp as a breath. The walls were scored with scratches tall as men, low as beasts. Torches lit as she passed, without fuel, without shame. It is a particular cruelty of certain houses that they strive to impress the one person least interested. At the corridor's end, a door the color of drowned coins. Symbols swam across it when she looked too long. Ravens, eyes, compasses, mispointing. The key from the ledger fit greedily. Doors are those rare creatures that love you for your utility. The lock unspooled like a tongue releasing a bone. The chamber beyond was an amphitheater cut into the earth. Rows of stone benches, a central dais shaped like an altar if altars were honest about their employment. Around the dais, 4 pillars. On each pillar, the face of a founder, chiseled with that superior serenity. Between the pillars, a circle of iron sunk into the floor, its circumference marked by small notches meant for candles or teeth. Wednesday stepped into the circle. The air altered, sweet with something like rot, but cleaner, like the idea of rot. Transformation. She felt pressure against her skull the way weather presses behind the eyes before rain flees. The lamps shivered into a dim the color of old bruises. "Hello," she said, her voice unstartled. "Do you require blood, or will attention suffice?" Something in the iron ring hummed in approval, metal that remembered blacksmiths who were poets with hammers. The pillars breathed. She did not flinch. She was a girl who orbits knives and returns uncut. A whisper braided itself from the corners of the room. It used no sound. It used her. "Raven," it said, not with a mouth, but with the gravity of an appointment. Each century hardens. Each century names one. We do not domesticate the dark. We enthrone it. "Consent is not one of your pillars," Wednesday said. "Consent is the shape of your feet, choosing to stand where only the chosen will." The voice had the confidence of architecture. "You have been here before. You have always been here." "Flattery is a blunt instrument," she said, although a peculiar ache stitched through her. Memory without source. The taste of iron and winter. A laugh that could have been hers in another century. She despised déjà vu. It was a thief already inside the house. "When?" The voice was breathless, human. Enid, of course, stood at the door, hugging herself as if her ribs were trying to leave. "I followed you. I know you hate that. I had to." Wednesday considered annoyance. It carried too much heat. She set it down. "If you faint, do not bleed on the circle. It requires sterilized offerings." Enid padded forward, gaze catching on everything. The iron ring, the altar, the faces on the pillars. This looks like the part of an initiation where everyone dies. It is the part of initiation where everyone decides, Wednesday said. Enid stopped outside the ring as if an invisible hand pressed to her sternum. This is why you stayed, she breathed. Not because of me, not because you need time, because you found a throne. I stayed, Wednesday replied, because there is a mechanism here that insists on being understood. I dislike unsolved machines. A simple truth, a carefully understated doom. The whisper, school, stone, founders, all of it, noticed Enid like a cat notices a bird that refuses to be prey. Wolf child, it said, inside their skulls. Enid staggered, but held. You carry a season we find irrelevant. Stand aside. Enid's jaw went stubborn in a way Wednesday had catalogued as a hazard. No. Wednesday's eyebrow lifted, half an indictment, half applause. The whisper revised its attention with something like curiosity, a first. The raven's heart is an obstruction. Remove the obstruction, and the throne takes root. Wednesday understood before the last syllable fell. She had read enough rituals to anticipate their inelegant geometry. An obstruction was another word for softness, another word for Enid. No, Wednesday said. The refusal was not loud, but it was made of iron and old oaths. You misunderstand, the whisper said, almost kindly. We are not asking you to kill. We are asking you to choose. The killing happens by itself. The room was quiet again. The lamps breathed. The circle tasted like lightning. Enid stepped forward until her shoes almost touched the iron. Tell it to shut up, she said, voice shaking. Tell the creepy founders to go back to their portrait and drink dust. You're Wednesday. You don't take thrones. You build them out of your enemies' expectations. Wednesday laughed, small and involuntary and awful. That might be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Enid blinked. The tremble in her mouth steadied. Then listen, I'm not an obstruction. She swallowed, brave and doomed. I'm the hand you take to walk out of here. Wednesday stepped over the iron. It hurt, and she did not reveal it. She crossed the circle until she stood so close to Enid, the scent of her. Fresh laundry, rain, a hint of wildness like wind chewing bone, was a map of another life. You are not an obstruction, Wednesday said, very quietly. You are a vow. She took Enid's hand, felt the small shudder of the other girl's relief, and used that relief as a needle to stitch herself shut. They left the chamber together. The iron ring thrummed, displeased. As the door closed, stone replied with the patience of glaciers. All vows are kilns, all kilns burn. In the week that followed, they pretended at normalcy, the way thieves pretend to be statues when the guards pass. Wednesday attended fencing and carved ribbons into air. Enid went to her support group and told no one how her bones itched at night, like they were remembering a different shape. Wednesday's phone, that irritating oracle, delivered the occasional text from a mother who sent knives as affection and a father who smiled like a photo of a smile. Xavier sketched pictures of a raven with a face half like Wednesday's, half like a stranger she did not want to meet. Bianca watched over the dorms with the lethal tenderness of a queen whose crown weighs more than weapons. Wednesday did not return to the chamber, not because she refused it, but because she believed patience is a flint that keeps its spark. The room would wait. The throne would not move. Power is the one lover that never elopes. She wrote instead. Pages that began as narration became diagrams, which became strategies, which became, reluctantly, prayers with their verbs sharpened into commands. She slept little. In the thin hours, She dreamed corridors that pivoted like a Rubik's Cube, doors that led to the same room wearing different disguises. Sometimes she woke with a taste like pennies. Sometimes Enid was there, asleep in a chair, hands folded as if she had tried to catch a fallen dream and failed. Wednesday watched her and thought, obstruction, vow, fuel, anchor. Words are not meant to be all true at once. Some days they manage it. On the 8th night, the ravens came. They arrived the way a rumor becomes a religion, suddenly, and then all at once. They crowded the gargoyles. They made commas of themselves along the balustrades. They wrote black sentences across the sky. Enid woke first because wolves hear prayers even when they're atheists. When? She shook Wednesday's shoulder. Listen. Wednesday listened. It wasn't the racket that arrested her. It was the pattern inside the racket. She stood, went to the window, and the ravens went silent, as if a conductor had lowered her hand. The night smelled like the beginning of a decision. Okay, Enid whispered. That's fine. Totally normal. Birds worship you now. Worship is imprecision, Wednesday said, eyes black coins in a pale face. This is acknowledgement. Of? That the dark has picked its hostess, Wednesday said, and in the glass her reflection smiled a terrible small smile Wednesday herself had not authorized. She did not tell Enid that part. She would later call that omission mercy. The truth would name it treason. Nevermore practiced the art of premonition by pretending it had no past. Some days felt like clean linen hung on a line. Others smelled like a crime that had learned table manners. The ravens' arrival had rearranged the school's gravity. Students spoke in lower registers. Laughter occurred, but as if it were sneaking out of a graveyard and might get caught. Principal Weems's portrait, restored and moved to a more ceremonial hall, watched Wednesday with the chill affection of those who tried to guide the unstoppable, and discovered the only workable tactic was to leave doors ajar. Wednesday paused before the frame, gaze meeting painted eyes. You wanted a Nevermore that was safe, Wednesday said. Safety is a religion that eats its gods. Footsteps approached. Bianca's reflection arrived in the glass first, then Bianca herself, immaculate, a storm disguised as a rumor, pearls at her throat like quiet threats. You've started drawing birds, Bianca observed dryly. The school noticed. It noticed me first, Wednesday said. Bianca studied the portrait, then the ravens stalking the parapets outside. I don't mind a queen, I mind a tyrant. Then our preferences align, Wednesday replied. Tyranny is inefficient. Fear evaporates after sunrise. Respect survives. Bianca's mouth curved. Respect is expensive. I intend to pay in attention, not cruelty, Wednesday said. Cruelty is for amateurs. Bianca's gaze sharpened, seeking the seam where Wednesday had stitched herself shut. If you become something we can't control, I'll put a knife between your ambitions. You'll need a longer knife, Wednesday said, but there was no insult in it, only an acknowledgment of Bianca's competence. They stood together in a silence shaped like chess. Don't do it alone, Bianca said at last, voice low. Whatever you're doing, power that grows in a vacuum grows teeth. Wednesday filed the warning where she kept the rare things, the truths that came from people who didn't love her and therefore had no incentive to flatter. Noted, she said. Bianca left. The portrait waited. Wednesday moved on. The amphitheater beneath the school was older than the school's lies. She entered it again, but not at night. Noonlight had no authority here. Torches woke with the same bruised flame. She carried nothing except a small lacquered box she had found in the ledger room. The box had no lock. It had a hunger. The iron circle recognized her like a mirror recognizes the face it prefers. The whisper arrived, patient and vile. "Raven," said a house that was a voice, "we begin with a name and end with a vow." "I will end with a choice," Wednesday replied. "They are the same shape, if you cut at the right angle." She stood inside the ring and set the box at her feet. An instinct advised her to leave it shut. Another older instinct suggested boxes that wish to remain shut are lying. She opened it. Inside was a strip of cloth blacker than her dress, black with that rare black that drinks light and asks for a second serving. At its center, stitched in silver thread, a circle bisected by a single vertical line. It could be a rune. It could be a wound. "Bind it," the whisper said. "Not your wrists, your refusal." Wednesday's hands hovered. "Explain," she said, because she always demanded definitions before she bled for them. "You are beautiful because you resist," the voice mused, "but a bow that never releases an arrow is just an ornament. Bind the piece that insists on saying no." "That piece is me," Wednesday said. "It is an organ, not a soul. Tie it. We will see what remains." She did not move. A soft sound near the threshold, fabric, breath, a heartbeat, a shade too fast. Wednesday did not turn. "Eugene," she said, "if you're here to be eaten by a ritual, I will be annoyed with your ghost." Eugene edged into the firelight, eyes behind thick glasses magnified with worry. He held his beekeeper's veil like a talisman. I just wanted to check if you needed company." "I do not require company," Wednesday said, then, after a beat, "but you may stay if you follow the rule." "What rule?" "If something tries to ask a question, do not answer it." She tilted her head. "Questions can be traps." Eugene swallowed. "That's good advice," he said. And Wednesday almost told him to leave because she heard the tremble he tried to bury. But he had come anyway. Loyalty has a volume the dark cannot ignore. She lifted the black strip of cloth. It was colder than it should be. She wrapped it around her right hand, over knuckles that had known piano keys and pocket knives. The knot accepted itself with a little sigh. Her fingers tingled and then fell elegantly numb. She flexed. Control remained. Sensation receded. "Excellent," the whisper approved. "Now recite." Words unfurled in her mind that she had not learned. She despised them because they were easily beautiful, the kind of beauty that seduces lesser people into obedience. She spoke anyway, trimming the flourish off each syllable. "I am not asking," Wednesday said in a language that sounded like frost melting backward. "I am not begging. I am a cup tilted toward a storm. Fill me or crack me." The torches leaned in. The iron ring purred. Something moved at the edge of the dais, a ripple like heat over a road, except this heat smelled like crow's feathers after rain. It shaped itself into a figure, not a person, a silhouette in the general area where a person might stand if they had been erased. When it spoke, the whisper had found a mouth. "Raven," it said, the word a ceremony. "We will cut you clean." "That assumes I am dirty," Wednesday said. "I am not. I am complicated." The figure's laugh was almost a compliment. "Bring the wolf." "No," Wednesday said. "Bring the wolf," the silhouette repeated, but softer, like a favorite memory you would pay the world to return to. "Bring her, and you will never feel cold again." Wednesday stood very still. The strip of black cloth cooled another degree, as if it fed on hesitation. Eugene made the small noise of someone who had realized that bravery is not an emotion, but an exit. "I should go," he whispered. "Stay," Wednesday said, and that one word steadied them both. The silhouette extended a hand that wasn't there. "You are a knife in search of an empire. Let the wolf be your scabbard." Wednesday considered the metaphor, found it both ingenious and revolting. "You want to sheath me in love so I cannot cut where I choose," she said. "No." The figure shifted, losing interest in seduction. "Then we sever you from the wolf," it said. "It is efficient." Eugene had promised to answer no questions. The figure did not ask one. It merely moved without moving toward him, a shadow's idea of a step. "No," Wednesday said, and this time the word had iron filings in it. She reached into the lacquered box and found, beneath where the cloth had lain, a dagger, small and ceremonious. The blade drank torchlight. She did not point it at the figure. She pointed it at herself. "Touch him," she told the vault of the room, "and I cut. Not skin, something you want." The whisper tasted her intent and reacted as if it had found cyanide where it expected sugar. The silhouette retreated, amused and offended and alarmingly impressed. "You bargain like a founder," it said. "I bargain like an Addams," she replied. "Remember our family motto." The torchlight flinched, as if it indeed remembered. Wednesday smiled without humor. "We gladly feast on those who would subdue us." The figure subsided into ordinary shadow. The air eased. The iron ring's purr became a listening. The chill would not leave her right hand. She undid the knot. The cloth fell, slapping the stone like a dead eel. "You should go," she told Eugene. He did not argue, which meant he had learned something. At the threshold, he paused. "You didn't ask it anything, but it asked you about the wolf." "I know," she said, "and you said no." He peered at her, eyes reflecting pinpricks of flame. "You said no because you care." "I said no because I refuse to make my own life easier at the expense of yours," Wednesday corrected. "Caring is incidental." Eugene smiled a little, the kind that comes after a long scare. "Thanks," he said, and left with a speed that was almost grace. She was alone again, or whatever passed for alone in a room that had opinions. She slid the dagger into her dress, where it lay against her hip like a secret trying to purr. Then, without looking, she kicked the black strip of cloth over the iron ring's threshold. The circle rejected it as if it were an organ the body knew was foreign. The cloth skittered back, pathetic. She collected it and put it in the box. The box shut itself. "First lesson," the whisper said mildly, "the throne is not a chair. The throne is the choice to remove what makes you weak." Wednesday took a slow breath, savoring the oxygen as a critic might savor a pretentious play, alert for fraud, grateful for authenticity. "Here's my first lesson," she said. "Weakness is a word cowards use to describe what they fear to need." Silence then. "You are expensive." "Good," she said. "I would hate to be affordable." She left. The torches exhaled. On the stairs, back to the world, she felt the first symptom. Her right hand sang a high thread of numbness that did not dissipate. It wasn't pain. It wasn't comfort. It was a subtraction, a test that wouldn't grade itself yet. She flexed the fingers. They flexed back, obedient as soldiers who already know they're going to die and have made peace with the administrative burden. Outside, the ravens turned as one and watched her emerge. Wednesday returned the look. A mutual audit. That night, she dreamed Enid was standing on the amphitheater's dais, hair streaming like banner flame in a wind that didn't blow. The iron ring had become a collar, and Enid's throat wore it as if it had been there since birth. "It's fine," Dream Enid said, smiling too bright. I like jewelry. Wednesday woke with her hand on the dagger, the blade kissing her palm in a hello that drew a dot of blood. She licked it, salt, metal, promise, and listened to the school breathe. In the morning, she knocked on Bianca's door. Bianca opened it in a robe cut like a warning and arched an eyebrow that could have sliced fruit. "I don't do early morning alliances," she said. "Mid-morning at least." "This one is urgent," Wednesday replied, stepping inside without invitation. "The school wants a bloodless sacrifice. It keeps designing situations that end with Enid missing." Bianca's gaze sharpened. "Define missing." "Subtracted," Wednesday said. "Removed like a melody from a song, and the song pretending it sounds better without it." Bianca's knuckles whitened on the doorframe. "It always tries to tidy us," she said quietly, "like we're messy rooms." She looked at Wednesday. "Do you love her?" Wednesday considered every meaning of the word love, found most of them distasteful, others too sanitary, a few interesting. "I owe her," she said, "and I like what I owe." Bianca nodded once, as if a deal had been made with the cosmos. "Then we take precautions." "Against a building?" Wednesday asked. "Against what lives in it," Bianca said, and for a second the Queen's mask slipped, and Wednesday saw the girl whose mother had sculpted obedience like a scar. "We will not let it swallow your wolf." "Not mine," Wednesday said too fast. Bianca smiled with all her teeth. "Liar!" They planned. Plans are fevers that make geniuses of ordinary people. In those hours, they were not ordinary. The outline was a triangle. Wednesday at one point, Bianca at another, Enid at the third. They agreed on new rules. No one entered the catacombs alone. No one answered the first voice that spoke their name if it came from the dark. No one wore jewelry they had not brought into the school themselves. "Also," Bianca said, "we use the ordinary world." "I object," Wednesday said. "It's tedious." "It's leverage," Bianca returned. "If the school wants to be your world, remind it there are others. Take Enid into town. Eat something with grease. Buy a stupid trinket. Touch things the school doesn't own." "Touch is not my preferred method of reassurance," Wednesday said. "It's hers," Bianca said. Wednesday looked at the wall as if it had asked a question she didn't appreciate. "Fine," she said, as if agreeing to a vaccination. They went to town. The ordinary world performed its theater. The bakery that smelled like sugared fatigue, the busker whose violin begged coins with a sobriety that redeemed the beg. Enid linked their arms. Wednesday did not tear her arm free. She let the mundane cover them like rain that was warmer than expected. They bought matching enamel pins. A raven for Wednesday, a ridiculous glittery paw print for Enid, who made Wednesday wear it anyway. "Insurance," Enid said solemnly. "If you turn into a cathedral, I can still find you." Wednesday almost smiled. "Cathedrals are noisy," she said. "I would prefer a crypt." They returned to Nevermore at dusk. The ravens were quieter, and Wednesday could not decide if that was a courtesy or an omen. In their dorm, Enid pinned the paw print to Wednesday's lapel with a ceremony that turned embarrassment into a sacrament. "There," she said softly, "now you're ridiculous too." "I am armed with irony," Wednesday said. She slept with the pin on. When she woke, it was gone. Not in the sheets, not under the bed, not on the floor. She checked with the calm of a bomb squad. Enid stirred, hair a pastel cloud that had learned mischief. "Lose something?" Enid murmured. "Yes," Wednesday said, "and no." Enid sat up, instantly alert. "The pin?" I am aware of its absence, Wednesday said, standing. Her right hand hummed with that elegant numbness, a tuning fork that would not finish the note. They searched. The pen did not exist. Enid's smile thinned. Maybe it fell off in town. Maybe the building wanted it, Wednesday said. Enid reached for Wednesday's lapel, fingers gentle. I'll get you another. You will not, Wednesday said. We will not appease theft with redundancy. She went to the ledger room. The air felt disarranged, like a mirror that had been breathed on. The key was where it always was. The portrait of the founders wore their immortality like cologne. The ledger lay open. It had opened itself. On the page, a list of objects, rings, knives, ribbon, hairpins. Beside each, a single word, paid. At the bottom, ink fresh as a wound, 2 new entries. Enamel, Raven, refused. Enamel, paw, accepted. Wednesday shut the book with a force that made dust cough. You cannot have her, she told the room. The room replied with no sound at all. But the silence was not empty. It was a full, smug silence. The kind that comes after a checkmate you cannot admit has occurred. She left, jaw a locked door. In the corridor, a raven dropped a single black feather at her feet. It was not a gift. It was a receipt. She picked it up and did not break it. They met at the amphitheater a week later because denial is exhausting and strategy tastes better when you stop pretending you're not hungry. Wednesday and Bianca arrived together. Enid waited near the entrance, fidgeting with the hem of a sweater, ugly on purpose, as if ugliness could be armor. What's the plan? Enid asked. She was trying for brave. She landed on incandescent. We test the throne, Bianca said, on our terms. Enid nodded, jaw tight. What do I do? Observe, Wednesday said. If anything speaks to you that isn't one of us, you leave. Run. Do not look back. Looking back is how stories lengthen themselves with funerals. Enid's eyes glittered. And if something speaks to you? It already has, Wednesday said. They descended. The chamber welcomed them with the courtesy of a predator who has set the table. Bianca took a place opposite Wednesday, outside the iron ring, but near enough to act without superstition. Enid stood by the door, hands clenched, wolf under her skin tracking every sound. Wednesday stepped into the ring. The numbness in her right hand climbed to the wrist, like ivy pretending it was a necklace. She ignored it. Raven, the whisper sighed, pleased. You return to the mouth of yourself. Consider this dental work, Wednesday said. I am here to adjust the bite. The torchlight thickened. The silhouette rose again like ink deciding to attend a party. Bring the wolf, it said, tireless. You are fixated, Wednesday observed. Obsessions are boring unless they are mine. The silhouette tilted its head. We offered you a bloodless path. You declined. That compels different economies. Try it, Bianca said from the sidelines, voice like a blade drawn mostly to be seen. Pick on someone without a crush? Enid flushed and then lifted her chin because shame is a luxury brave people can't afford. The room breathed laughter. Sirens always believe they are immune because their own songs own them. Bianca flinched, and Wednesday's dislike congealed into hatred. Targeting Bianca meant the school preferred easy prey when blocked. That was a useful insult. Commence, Wednesday said, furious in a still way. The silhouette stepped back. In its place, a shape rose from the iron circle's center. Not a person this time. A chair made of absence. The outline of a throne. The back carved from darkness. The seat upholstered in more of that impossible black. It pulsed once like a heart that belonged to a machine. Sit, the voice said. No, Wednesday replied. Sit, it repeated, and the word carried a slight pressure, not compulsion, suggestion wrapped in velvet. I stand, Wednesday said. Queens stand when their empires are still theoretical. The throne altered its strategy. The seat rippled. The back thinned into the silhouettes of ravens' wings. The armrests developed grooves where elbows might belong. It softened, courting her anatomy. I have noted your upholstery, Wednesday said. It will not touch me. A low sound that might have been irritation or admiration. The torchlight contracted, concentrating. The throne's outline flickered and then became something else. Not a chair, a piano, black, grand, glossy. Her reflection a dark pearl on its lid. The bench shone with the patient temptation of a confession booth. The keys were a grin. On its music stand lay a sheet of paper, blank. Enid gasped. Wednesday did not, but her right hand ached the way phantom limbs ache for weapons. Play, the whisper purred. Write your own coronation. Bianca said, Don't, too fast. Wednesday moved toward the piano. When? Enid said, low and sharp. You told me rituals keep us predictable. This one reveals, Wednesday said, and I would like to see the ambush coming. She sat. The bench was the perfect height. Of course it was. Her right hand hovered. The numbness lifted for the first time in days, a tide pulling back to reveal something raw and unsunny. She placed her fingers on the keys. The first chord was simple, a minor cathedral. The second unfolded like moths, rejecting daylight. The third climbed a staircase without handrails. The piano did not sound like wood and string. It sounded like rooms making decisions. Bianca's voice came through the sound, thin with distance. Wednesday. Silence, Wednesday said, and the music ate the word and rearranged it into a melody that hurt. She played the piece she refused to call a prayer. It told the story of a girl who had always been braver than her skin and a school that had always been hungrier than its architects. It told of a wolf who learned gentleness like a second language and spoke it with a ferocity that startled people into being better. It told of a throne that wanted a body, and a body that wanted nothing except to never want. The blank page on the stand inked itself. Notes arrived like a murder of crows landing on a cathedral spine. A title wrote itself. Elegy for a Nevermore that did not lie. Wednesday smiled without kindness. That's not our Nevermore, she said, not stopping. The room corrected the title. Elegy for a Nevermore that learned to tell the truth better. The last chord was a door fallen shut. Silence. Then the throne, not a throne, wavered, and the piano dissolved back into absence. In its place, a mirror rose from the circle, framed in iron that looked flexible and would not be. The glass showed the three of them as if they were a painting. Bianca poised, Enid luminous with fear and devotion, Wednesday precise as a guillotine. Then the image rippled. Wednesday's reflection stepped closer from inside the mirror. Her eyes were double pupils, like the ledger had promised. They were not crueler. They were emptier in the way of vessels made for exactly one kind of liquid. Hello? Mirror Wednesday said, voice identical and stripped of static. You are wasting time. I prefer to spend it, Wednesday said. Time is a solvent, Mirror Wednesday said. It will unglue what you've convinced yourself won't come apart. What do you want? Bianca demanded. Mirror Wednesday ignored her, gaze fixed on Wednesday with the focus of a scalpel. You kept the wolf, admirable, inefficient. Sentiment is a leash? You've wrapped it in velvet and named it Vow. It is still a leash. Enid's breath hitched. Wednesday did not turn. You are the founder's ideal, she said, a raven that never bleeds. I am your inevitable, Mirror Wednesday said, stepping until her palms touched the glass. We both know the shape of it. You can sit and end this, or you can keep pretending that your refusal is a crown. She leaned closer, eyes splitting the torchlight into knives. Would you like to know the twist? You cannot keep her, even if you win, especially if you win. Enid whispered. What does that mean? It means, Mirror Wednesday said, and for the first time her mouth softened into something like pity, that love elects its own sacrifices. The school does not demand it. The throne does not require it. You will choose it because you are cruelest to yourself when you are kindest to others. The mirror fogged between them as if someone had exhaled winter. Wednesday lifted her left hand to the glass. Mirror Wednesday lifted her right. Their fingers met through temperature. Tell me, Wednesday said, how it happens. Mirror Wednesday smiled. It was Wednesday's smile if you shaved it until it cut bone. I don't need to. You will write it and pretend you had to. The mirror went blind. Silver churned to mercury. When it cleared, the glass showed only the room. Enid staggered. Bianca swore with more elegance than most people manage on their best days. Wednesday did not move. She saw her face in the mirror. Ordinary, unsplit pupils, braided hair like a noose she had politely declined to use. That wasn't a ritual, Bianca said finally. That was a diagnosis. Wednesday's right hand hummed. She flexed it. Numbness returned like obedience. No, she said. That was the first draft. Enid made a sound that was not a cry and not a laugh. What if the twist is that you don't choose the throne at all? She asked, desperate. What if the twist is you run away with me and open a bakery in a town that doesn't ask questions? Then the world would be deprived of excellent bread and an excellent monster, Wednesday said, both travesties. We could be happy, Enid whispered. Wednesday stared at the mirror as if it were a lover who had wronged her with indisputable facts. Happiness is a climate. I prefer weather, she said. That's not an answer, Enid said. It never is, Wednesday replied, and turned away so Enid wouldn't see the tendril of grief that had learned to wear her pulse like a glove. They left the chamber. The torches dimmed in a sulk. In the corridor, a shadow peeled itself from the wall and tried to put itself into Wednesday's pocket. She let it. When she reached the dorm, she emptied her pocket and found a small object that looked like a chess pawn carved from raven bone. It was smooth from a century of hypothetical fingers. At its base, the same symbol stitched on the black cloth, a circle bisected, a wound pretending to be geometry. She placed it on her desk between the typewriter and the dagger. The typewriter waited. The dagger did not wait. It merely lay ready. The pawn did nothing at all but exist the way a trap exists in the shape of a door. Enid came to stand in the doorway. She did not enter. Wolves know when thresholds have teeth. Tell me you won't sacrifice me, Enid said very quietly. Wednesday turned. She approached the slowest way so Enid could leave if she needed to. Enid did not leave. Wednesday took Enid's wrist, felt the flutter there, a bird that wanted to be brave. She lifted the wrist to her mouth and pressed her lips to that pulse. Not a kiss, an oath. I will not, Wednesday said. Enid closed her eyes, and the relief that spilled out of her made the room warmer. Okay, she said. Okay. Wednesday let the wrist go. But the house believes it can choreograph inevitability, she added, because honesty was a religion she kept even when it cost her. And I am afraid it knows me. Enid opened her eyes. Then we teach it a new dance, she said, and smiled, messy and bright, the way light can be when it has no idea how to behave in a cathedral. Wednesday nodded as if the matter were settled. It was not. That night, the ravens were gone. In their absence, the sky looked untrustworthy, like a face without eyebrows. Wednesday couldn't sleep. She went back to the amphitheater alone, not because of arrogance, but because dread sometimes needs privacy to ferment. At the threshold she stopped. The torches refused to wake. The dark was perfect. Cowardice is beneath you, she told it. We are conserving resources, came the whisper at last. The next movement will be expensive. Then let me fund it, Wednesday said, on my terms. You have no terms, the voice answered, with something like sorrow. You have only the illusion of them. The twist has already been purchased. You paid a down payment with your first refusal. You will pay the balance with your last mercy. Name the mercy, Wednesday said, stepping into the dark so that it pressed cold to her cheek like a hand that wanted to be kind and had forgotten how. You will take away the choice you promised to protect, the whisper said. You will save the wolf from the school by taking the school out of the wolf, and she will thank you before she hates you. Wednesday stood in the dark and did the cruelest thing she knew how to do when faced with prophecy. She believed it just enough to prepare and disbelieved it just enough to hope. She turned and climbed the stairs back to the world that still had light bulbs. The pawn waited on her desk, patient, the dagger beside it. Between them, she placed the enamel raven pin, the one the ledger claimed she had refused. She had found it under her pillow when she returned, stitched into the case by a thread of hair that was not her own. When she slept, she dreamed a bakery anyway. Enid kneaded dough like a priest kneading doctrine. Wednesday arranged knives on a wall in the shape of constellations. Customers came and did not ask questions. A bell rang every time someone entered, and each time it rang, Wednesday counted backward from 10 and stopped at 1. In the morning, she woke, counted forward to 10, and did not stop at all. The town decided to be charming. It put up lanterns that pretended to be stars and laid out a harvest festival like a bribe. Music curled through streets that had learned to keep their secrets on the second shelf where no one dusted. Nevermore students trickled in, escorted by teachers who practiced vigilance as if it were etiquette. Bianca walked between Wednesday and Enid, braid neat as a verdict, eyes scanning reflections more than faces. Remember the rules, she murmured. No mirrors unless you brought them. No drinking from communal bowls. No accepting necklaces, Enid finished, attempting lightness. She tugged at Wednesday's sleeve. Let me buy you a She corrected herself mid-syllable, aware of who she was with. A pastry, something ugly. Wednesday allowed herself to be led to a stall where twisted bread wore sugar like fresh snow. The vendor beamed, the kind of smile that sold comfort and counted change like penance. Enid bought 2, pressed one into Wednesday's hand with ceremony. This is your talisman, Enid said, mock solemn. If the school tries to eat you, show it carbs. I doubt gluten will save me, Wednesday said, but she did not drop the pastry. She held its warmth and wondered at the fact of it. Flour, yeast, heat, alchemy that did not require blood or vows, only patience and fire. They sat on a low wall. Enid swung her feet. Her sneaker brushed Wednesday's boot now and then, an accident rehearsed to look like coincidence. Bianca stood sentinel still, checking the crowd for the shimmer that meant glamour and the absence that meant trap. "See?" Enid said, mouth half full, eyes bright. "Ordinary, grease, noise, we're fine." "A lullaby before a scream," Bianca said, not looking at her. "Enjoy it." They did, because even fatalists take the sun when it appears. Wednesday ate 2 bites of pastry and secretly absolutely liked it. A small parade drifted down the street, children in papier-mâché masks shaped like animals that never learned to be gentle. A boy howled, long and sweet, and Enid's spine straightened. Something old answered in her blood, a chord she didn't play, but recognized. The boy's mother smiled at Enid in that automatic way people smile at friendly strangers. Enid smiled back, a little frail and very brave. The parade passed. Music swelled. For a breath, the ordinary world held. Then the air changed. It shifted the way it does before lightning discovers a taller tree. Wednesday felt it in the bones of her teeth, the pressure of intention. She turned, too slow, she would admit later, and saw the mirrors. They hadn't been there, and then they were, ovals hung on wires, strung like spiderwebs between lampposts. The festival called them art, the way people call a storm a surprise when the sky has been threatening for hours. Each mirror reflected the crowd, warping them into carnival versions, heads stretched, torsos narrowed, harmless distortions that disguised the fact that the glass had depth it did not own. "Don't look," Bianca hissed, but you cannot ask a crowd to not look at itself. Heads tilted, eyes found eyes. "When?" Enid whispered. "Breathe," Wednesday said. The breath came shaky. The circle sank like a coin placed on water and refusing physics. It touched Enid's sternum and rippled. Enid arched, a strangled sound pressing from her. Wednesday's left hand found Enid's wrist and gripped, anchoring. "Shh," Wednesday said. "It is only an organ." The whisper giggled, delighted. "We approve of the pruning." Wednesday began to speak, words that weren't the house's script, words she had carved into sleepless white between night and morning, an Addams litany grafted onto a Nevermore ritual. "I will not erase. I will relocate. I will not sever. I will unhook." The circle brightened. Enid's eyes went wide, then wider, as if she was seeing something inside herself that had never let her be introduced. "I'm sorry," Enid managed, not to Wednesday, to the wolf. "Don't be," Wednesday said, at once cruel and kind. The litany continued. "What was forced will be freed. What was named a problem will be reshelved as power. What hunts for others will hunt for me." The last line was the most honest, and the most unforgivable. A shape gathered under Enid's skin, light without light, movement without muscle. It pressed up beneath her collarbones, a second heart in the wrong place. Enid gasped. Her eyes flashed amber, then gold, then ash. "When?" she said, a plea and a benediction. Wednesday set the pawn against the bisected circle. The symbol recognized its mate. The pawn drank something Wednesday could not see but felt. Heat, wildness, the scream that wasn't born from pain but from recognition. Enid stiffened. The torches leaned in. The amphitheater sighed. Payment received. "Shut up," Wednesday said and twisted. It was not a twist of wrist, but of will, a torque on a gear to find a name. The circle contracted. Enid cried out, not human, not wolf, something third that had always been trying to translate itself. The pawn pulsed in Wednesday's palm, hot enough to blister, and then went cold. The sound stopped. Enid sagged. Wednesday caught her. She was lighter than she should be, as if Gravity had reduced its offer. Wednesday lowered her to the stone, palms framing Enid's face again, searching for the animal brightness, and finding, at first, a polite absence. "Speak," Wednesday said, and pressed enough command into the word that it became a bridge. Enid swallowed, shook, looked up. Her eyes were blue and only blue. Her breath came ordinary. Her pulse was steady, small, mortal. "I'm okay," she whispered. "I'm okay." Wednesday forced herself not to sway. Relief was a drunk. She wouldn't let it drive. "The wolf?" Enid asked, small. "Not dead," Wednesday said. "Dormant, displaced." Enid's gaze fell to the pawn in Wednesday's hand. It looked harmless again. It wasn't. "Into me," Wednesday said. Enid's mouth opened, closed, opened. "When?" she breathed, as if Wednesday had done something obscene and holy. You took it?" "I said it would not hunt you," Wednesday said. "I did not say it would starve." Enid's laugh came and broke halfway. Tears followed with the humiliating efficiency tears always have. "Thank you," she said, because she was who she was. "I'm sorry," she added immediately, because mercy is a habit hard to break, "for making you—" "You did not make me," Wednesday said. "I am incapable of being made." Enid smiled, hiccuping. She reached up, touched Wednesday's cheek with 2 fingers, reverent. "I can't hear it," she whispered, wonder and grief. "It's quiet, for the first time since I was a kid." Wednesday leaned her face into that touch because mercy has teeth, and sometimes you guide it gently back into the mouth before it decides to do more damage. "Good," she said. The torches flickered. The whisper clucked its tongue. So tidy, so modern, so mistaken. Wednesday stood smoothly, sliding the pawn into an inner pocket, the dagger to her hip. "Explain your opinion or choke on it." "You moved the house," the voice said. "You did not change the address." The air shifted. It felt like a room before surgery, full of cold kindness. Enid sat up, uneasy. "What does—" The iron circle flared, a brief hum. A second later, far in the distance, the school's bell rang thrice, spaced, deliberate, not an alarm, a schedule, Bianca's 2 hours. "We're done," Wednesday said. "Up." Enid stood, swayed, steadied. She reached for Wednesday's hand and stopped, as if remembering a rule. Wednesday took it anyway. The 2 of them crossed the circle together. The boundary resisted, then allowed them with a sensation like being scanned and misfiled on purpose. In the corridor, air moved differently around Enid. The draft did not curl her hair. The stone did not smile. The house had lost its scent to her. "Do you feel empty?" Wednesday asked, factual. Enid considered. Her hand tightened for a second around Wednesday's. "Light," she said. "Like I put down a box I thought was part of my spine." Wednesday nodded once. Approval and an annotation in a private text. "Observe for delayed collapse." Bianca met them at the top of the stairs, hair unfrayed, eyes furious. 2 hours, she said, plus 7 minutes. Never do that to me again. Then she saw Enid's face, calm in a new way, and her fury stuttered. "Did it work?" "It worked," Enid said, pressing fingers to her own throat as if to feel the quiet. "I think," Bianca exhaled. "Good," she said, "because they're coming." "Who?" Wednesday asked, although she already knew. "Staff, board, alumni who never stop being alumni," Bianca said, "with signatures and scrolls and a ceremony that will look civilized. They'll say it's an evaluation. They mean it's a coronation." "For me," Wednesday said. "For someone," Bianca replied, "and now maybe for you. You just proved you can do the ugly with clean hands." Enid's lips thinned. "She did it to save me." "I know," Bianca said, losing patience for innocence. "They will not care." The hall darkened in a polite way. In the distance, the soft advance of shoes that cost influence and expected to be obeyed. Wednesday straightened. She felt the pawn like a second heartbeat against her ribs. Something inside her stretched, yawned, blinked in a cave. "Hello?" said a new voice, hers and not hers, and she knew, with the certainty of a blade realizing it is loved and will be used, that she had miscalculated. The wolf was not a dog you put on a leash inside your chest. It was a window, and something beyond that window was looking in. They dressed the ceremony in velvet and law. In the great hall, chairs arranged the students into an audience polite enough to call a sacrifice an appointment. Teachers stood like statuary that had once been human. The board members, 12 in number, wore expressions lacquered against anything so gauche as surprise. At the front, the chair carved with ravens. No one called it a throne. Everyone saw it. Bianca slid into a seat a row behind Wednesday, and Enid, positioning herself at a flanking angle that would be a nightmare for anyone trying to reach them. "If they ask questions," she murmured, "you answer with questions. If they state facts, you nod once and say nothing. Disagreement is the same as confession." "I'll be charming," Wednesday said. "Try not to be," Bianca said. "It unnerves them." The principal, acting temporary, a man who believed that a neutral tone cured cruelty, stepped to the dais. He spoke names. He spoke history with excisions. He spoke the phrase institutional continuity with the fervor of someone who had never let anything grow wild on purpose. They called Wednesday. She went. Enid's hand brushed her sleeve, brief as a wing. Bianca's gaze cut into her back like a reminder. Wednesday stood before the board, 12 pairs of eyes. The eldest member smiled kindly, the way a surgeon smiles before the anesthetic. "Miss Addams," she said, "you've been industrious." "Idleness is a hobby for those with duller skulls," Wednesday replied. Polite laughter. A gentleman with a voice like wax said, "We've observed phenomena indicating resonance between you and the house." Wednesday tilted her head. "The house is loud. I am efficient. The two can be mistaken." More polite laughter. Another member, the kind of woman who wore pearls as if they had been gummy bears once, leaned forward. "We are concerned with suitability." "For what?" Wednesday asked. "For stewardship," the woman replied. "For custodianship of traditions that predate your enthusiasms." "You mean leadership," Wednesday said. "I do not steward. I rule." A ripple of discomfort. The eldest member's smile deepened. "Confidence is admirable at your age." "It is not a phase," Wednesday said. They began the questions. "Do you understand the founder's vision?" "Yes, and I dislike their vocabulary." "Will you uphold the safety of students?" "Safety is a fantasy. I will uphold the integrity of our teeth." "What do you say to accusations that you attract calamity?" "Calamity is attracted to its peers." Each answer landed the way knives land when thrown by someone who practiced for years in secret. The board rearranged their expressions, but kept their shape. "Very well," the elder said at last. "The house has certain tests." "You've already initiated one." The air cooled. Torches didn't exist here. Electricity did the work with less romance and no mercy. The chandeliers dimmed anyway, because buildings take their orders from whatever remembers their first stone. "Bring the wolf," someone said, and Wednesday realized the voice hadn't come from a throat. It had come from the walls. Enid stood up before anyone could decide whether she'd been invited. She walked forward with the solemnity of a person entering a courtroom to testify against themselves, and knowing it is the bravest, dumbest thing they will ever do. "Miss Sinclair," the eldest board member said, surprised to find her script amended without permission. "You are excused." "I excuse you," Enid said, shaking, "from pretending this is a democracy." The students inhaled, some laughed, the nervous kind, some clapped, the suicidal kind. Bianca's eyes begged Enid to be cautious, failing because begging was not a language Enid understood in emergencies. Wednesday met Enid in the middle of the hall. They faced each other like two conspirators who had forgotten which one was supposed to smile. "Show them," Wednesday said, quietly. Enid nodded. She lifted her hands, palms up, the way you present an indictment that also happens to be your heart. "I can't," she said to the room loudly. "There's nothing to show. I'm quiet." A murmur. The board reevaluated rapid mental math. The eldest member's poise wavered, the exact width of an eyelash. "How?" she asked, and the tone was not compassion. It was interest sharpened by threat. Wednesday said, "I made a choice because she refused to make Enid do the explaining. The house demanded an absence. I demanded a transfer." "Into yourself," the Pearl woman said, a little eager. "How? Selfless?" "Incorrect," Wednesday said. "How tactical." The eldest member's gaze darkened. "Do you admit to performing rituals without authorization?" "Yes," Wednesday said. "I do not require permission to protect what is mine." A hush. "Ownership is the kind of word that starts wars or marriages. It started this instead." The eldest member inclined her head, the world's most polite guillotine. "Then we must proceed," she said, and there was the slightest exhale from the walls. Satisfaction, grief, something in that family. The chandeliers went completely dark. In the blackout, a hinge somewhere screamed. The hall smelled briefly of lake water and old paper. Then light returned, the wrong kind, the kind that came from no source and made shadows stack in directions light did not understand. At the foot of the dais, where the chair had been, a mirror lifted from the floor like a confession being raised to a microphone. Wednesday already knew how this part went. Her reflection stepped forward, pupils doubled, mouth amused. This time, though, the amusement wasn't aimed at her. It slid past Wednesday and landed on Enid. "Hello?" Mirror Wednesday said to the wolf, who was no longer a wolf. "How empty you are." Enid flinched. Wednesday stepped between them. "Address me." "I am," Mirror Wednesday said. "You are too now." The board made noises, words like protocol and incident response. The students leaned forward as if gravity had been reassigned to curiosity. Bianca stood, poised to break 10 rules in a row in a way that looked like etiquette. Mirror Wednesday lifted her hand. It wasn't a gesture of threat. It was an invitation. "Let's accelerate," she said. "You've already paid the deposit." "What price remains?" Wednesday asked, because she would rather cut to the organ than waste time with skin. Mirror Wednesday smiled. "A decision you have already made." "Speak plainly or be silent," Wednesday said. "Take her choice," the mirror said, and the way it said her was a caress and a gunshot. "You locked the wolf. Now lock the door. Make it permanent. Remove the part of her that could ever ask for it back." Enid whispered, "When?" Wednesday did not look at her. She would not. If she looked, the decision would become something else, and she could not afford metaphor. She heard Bianca move. She heard the board members rearrange their documents as if paper had ever prevented a fire. "You told me not to ask forgiveness," Wednesday said to Bianca without turning. I retract, Bianca said. Don't do it. Enid stepped closer. Wednesday. I know, Wednesday said, and the words debrided something raw. She lifted the pawn from her pocket. It lay in her palm like a small, reasonable co-conspirator. The dagger weighed the other hand. Balance. Mirror Wednesday's eyes softened. This is the mercy that becomes a weapon when you wield it, she murmured, as if to herself. Wednesday moved. It was not dramatic. Drama is for making other people feel things. This was surgical. She took Enid's hands in hers. She spoke the 4 lines from the litany, choosing the ones that cut. I will close what I opened. I will seal what I loosened. I will take the key. I will eat it. Enid tried to pull back. Wednesday didn't allow it. Not with force. Force is obvious, but with inevitability. Enid looked at her and saw the truth, the one the mirror had named. Wednesday was kindest to others when she was cruelest to herself, and she was about to be kind to Enid. No, Enid said finally. It was not loud. It was very late. Please. Wednesday did not stop. The pawn warmed. Something inside Enid shivered toward it, a moth toward flame, a ship toward its own compass, even if the compass is wrong. Wednesday pressed the pawn to Enid's sternum. The bisected circle flared, ghost of its earlier presence. Wednesday spoke the last word. Stay. The symbol sank. The room exhaled. Enid swayed and caught herself, face going pale, then steadier than it had any right to be. The quiet that followed wasn't mere silence. It was a change in barometric pressure. Wolves across the campus, those awake, those sleeping, lifted their heads in confusion at a chorus that had just lost a soprano. Thank you, Enid said, and the gratitude was true, beautiful, catastrophic. I can't hear it at all. I can't imagine it. Wednesday didn't blink. Good, Enid nodded, tears brimming. Good, she repeated, trying to convince the part of herself that had survived every kindness and every cruelty that this new absence was also survivable. Bianca made a soft, wounded noise that she quickly strangled. The board readjusted their expectations, as if rearranging lilies at a funeral to make them look less funereal. The eldest member said, low, reverent, discipline. Mirror Wednesday laughed, and it came out like a blade dragged along the edge of a harp. Oh, you poor fools, she said to the board. She didn't do it for you. Wednesday looked at her other self. It's done. Is it? The mirror asked, gentle as arsenic. She tilted her head at Enid. Ask her in a week, in a month, when the moon climbs and finds she has no stairs, when a song plays in the forest and she cannot answer, and the forest calls her coward for obeying a human house. Enid flinched like someone brushed by a future. And you, Mirror Wednesday continued, stepping closer to the glass. What climbs in you now that you made the window? What looks out through your eyes when you aren't paying attention? What will greet the house when it arrives to live where you invited it? A draft moved through the hall. Students shivered. The chandeliers tinkled as if small hands had rung them. The eldest board member recovered her composure with professional speed. Miss Addams, she said, crisp, sit. The chair waited. Wednesday didn't move. Enid touched her sleeve. The touch almost broke her. Do it, Enid whispered raw. If this is all for nothing, then at least sit and make it not for nothing. Wednesday looked at the chair. It didn't look like a throne now. It looked like a cliff. She sat. The hall sighed. Not relief, recognition. The iron inside the walls hummed. The mirror clouded, then cleared, not to reflect the hall, but the amphitheater below. Torches guttering in wind that didn't exist. The circle bright as a cauterized wound. In Wednesday's pocket, the pawn pulsed. Something inside her stood up and stretched, a muscle that had never been asked to work. The first shock announced itself the way dawn does at high latitudes, subtle, then everywhere. Wednesday closed her eyes. She heard the school, not the whisper it used with everyone, not the purr it saved for those it wanted. She heard it in a voice exactly like her own, speaking from a mouth made of doors. Welcome home. She opened her eyes and saw the board members, the students, Bianca's set jaw, Enid's brave ruin of a face. She felt the wolf, coiled inside her, not domesticated, not grateful, alert, understanding her bones better than she ever had, waiting for the right hunt. And she understood, finally, what the mirror had been promising and threatening. The first sacrifice was Enid's howl. The second would not be a person. It would be the part of Wednesday that believed she could still walk away. She folded her hands on the throne's arms. The hall took the picture it would become later in a ledger no one living would be allowed to open. Proceed, she said. The weather changed. Titles are just leashes with better typography. They called it a stewardship, then a custodianship, then, when the walls themselves refused euphemism, a ravenship. Wednesday accepted none of the terms and all of the power. She did not wear a crown. She wore eyes that made rooms stop lying. For a week, she ruled without announcing it. Orders dressed themselves as observations. Doors began opening a beat earlier than her hand reached them. The staff adjusted their routes the way rivers adjust to a new rock. Resentful at first, then resigned. Students were more difficult. They tested, they gossiped. Some admired her the way people admire a tiger through glass. Others waited to see if the glass would crack. Bianca watched like a sovereign who had seen the sword behind every bouquet. She stood at the back of assemblies and measured Wednesday's sentences for the word we. When Wednesday used it, Bianca's shoulders eased a fraction. When Wednesday didn't, Bianca's jaw ticked. Enid moved through the days like someone who has changed altitude. She breathed easily for the first time in years. She slept whole nights and woke without apology. When the moon grew fat, she felt only a curious pang, as if she had forgotten an appointment and could not remember what it was. She smiled more, she flinched less. She hugged Wednesday exactly as much as she dared and no more, because Wednesday had become a fault line and Enid refused to be the trimmer that broke it. The wolf inside Wednesday behaved like an honored guest at first. It did not scratch, it did not growl. It sat in a chair built from Wednesday's ribcage and watched. When she climbed stairs, it measured the distance to the ground. When she listened to lies, it took the air straight from her lungs and handed it back only when the liar finished. When she played the typewriter as if it had strings, it leaned closer to the sound, head tilted like a creature hearing a hymn written by teeth. She noticed the changes on the third day. Her hearing turned the hall into a map of breathing. She could tell when a student was crying in a bathroom 3 doors away, and whether the tears were for grief or for rage. Her footsteps became quieter and heavier at once. She could read the weather by how the ravens ruffled, and when she looked into the mirror, she had moved beside the desk, the one she trusted only enough to face. Sometimes her pupils were ordinary. Sometimes they were the double moons the ledger had promised. They came and went like a tide. She didn't tell anyone, not even Enid, especially not Enid. On the 6th day, she found the first gift. It lay on the threshold of their dorm, a single silver hair, Enid's, or what Enid's used to be, tied in a knot. that had no beginning. Beneath it, 3 teeth the size of pearls, wolf teeth, baby teeth, a small pile of wolf that no longer had anywhere to go. Wednesday crouched. She did not touch them with her hands. She moved them on to a handkerchief with the tip of the dagger, wrapped them, and slid them into a drawer. She did not tell Enid. The drawer closed softly, as if not to wake something. That afternoon, Bianca intercepted her outside the great hall. "We need limits," Bianca said without preface. "I have many," Wednesday replied. "Name one." "Patience," Wednesday said. Bianca almost smiled. "For others, perhaps? For yourself?" She shook her head. "The house is learning you. You should make it learn your fences, too." "Advise me," Wednesday said, because she knew how to wield a blade and a friend in the same hand. Bianca exhaled. No rituals without a witness. No decisions alone after midnight. No names spoken into mirrors that you wouldn't say into a grave. "And your limits?" Wednesday asked. Bianca didn't blink. "I will warn you once before I stop you. I will stop you once before I remove you. And if you become the house, I will burn it and ask forgiveness from whatever crawls out of the ashes." "We will make a charming pair of statues some day," Wednesday said, as if consenting to be carved. Bianca's gaze searched Wednesday's face for the seam. "You're changing," she said quietly. "Everyone is," Wednesday replied. "Not like this," Bianca murmured. "Not so fast, not so much." The wolf inside Wednesday listened with intelligent disinterest. Wednesday felt its ear twitch when Enid approached, could feel her before she arrived, scentless and bright, like frost under sun. Enid joined them, smiling, holding a paper bag that breathed cinnamon. "I bribed the kitchen," she said. "Don't ask how. It involved charm and threats, and probably a promise to clean the ovens." "Is there grease?" Wednesday asked without irony. "So much grease," Enid said proudly. "You'll hate it." "I'm adapting," Wednesday said, and for a second her voice wore fur. Enid didn't hear it. Bianca did. Bianca's eyes went cold. "Later," she said under her breath. "We talk." "Later," Wednesday agreed, because she did not fear the talk. She feared the answer. That evening, the board sent a letter sealed with black wax. Wednesday cracked it with her thumbnail and read out loud so the room would understand she did not care to hide their attempts at choreography. "Miss Addams, your stewardship requires ratification by legacy ceremony. Midnight, 2 nights hence. Board present, faculty present. Students voluntary. Attire formal. Compliance expected. Beneath, in smaller script, our house adores you already." Wednesday folded the letter into a paper knife and handed it back to the messenger. "Tell them I prefer dawn," she said. "Midnight is cliché." The messenger fled. Enid leaned against the window, watching dusk assemble into uniform. "A ceremony," she said. Should I? "All we need from you is attendance," Wednesday said. "And a smile." "I can do smiles," Enid said, "even the kind that hurts." "That one looks best on you," Wednesday said. Enid's laugh was a very small sun lighting a very large room. The wolf stirred in Wednesday's chest. It did not like the letter. It did not like the ceremony. It did not like the word ours, unless it had chosen its own. That night, Wednesday dreamed she was in the amphitheater, and the iron ring was around her neck. When she woke, the pawn was warm in her pocket, and there were scratches inside her throat where words had tried to climb out and failed. She drank water. She didn't look in the mirror. She listened to Enid breathe and counted backward from 10, stopping at 1, then starting again, because stopping had begun to feel like a luxury she could no longer afford. Bianca did not wait for midnight. She called an assembly for students only. No staff, no board, no watchers who take notes, so they don't have to take responsibility. They met in the greenhouse, where humidity glued hair to foreheads, and the air smelled like living rot. Wednesday arrived to find half the school already in a simmer. Bianca stood on a potting bench like a queen, using a low throne to insult a high one. "We are not sheep," she said. "We are not experiments. We are not a lineage to be curated by ghosts." Murmurs, then applause. Ajax raised a hand, already overwhelmed by the notion of rebellion when he barely managed laundry. "So, what do we do?" Bianca pointed at him. "We choose. We choose whether we let a house appoint a queen and pretend it asked us first. We choose whether we accept that a friend can cut a wolf out of another friend and call it mercy." The air went sharp. Heads turned to Wednesday. Enid stiffened. Wednesday kept her face still. Bianca's gaze didn't waver. "I am not accusing you," she said, and the mercy in her voice was steel. "I am accusing the system that made you decide." "The system did not make me," Wednesday said. "I chose with a steady hand." "Exactly," Bianca said, "and that is why we have to decide whether to follow you." Ajax squinted. "You're saying vote?" "I'm saying teeth," Bianca said. "Use them." Eugene lifted his veil. "We could, do both?" His voice was small and true. "Follow Wednesday, but set rules she can't break, even if she wants to." "A leash," someone muttered. "A pact," Eugene corrected, surprising himself. "She likes oaths. We make one tomorrow night, not theirs. Ours." Heads nodded. Bianca considered it, then looked at Wednesday. "Do you accept a pact you don't write?" she asked. "No," Wednesday said, "but I can sign one I edit." Groans, laughter, the kind that relaxes knives back into their sheaths. Bianca smirked, not victorious, not beaten. "Then we draft it now," she said, "before the house drafts us." They wrote rules on brown paper with gardening pencils, smudging soil into law. No ritual without 3 witnesses, 1 friend, 1 rival, 1 neutral. No sacrifice without the truth named out loud, twice. No love used as leverage under penalty of exile from leadership. No power without rotation, the Raven chairs with a council of 5 elected monthly. No mirror unguarded, no door unmarked, no vow without an exit. Elections were the next day. Bianca refused nomination. "I will not be your conscience and your tyrant," she said. "Choose other sharks." They chose. Xavier, reluctant, useful. Yoko, quiet as a knife. Ajax as a dare to the universe. Eugene, because he kept showing up. And Enid, because the room loved her and she did not know how to weaponize that. Wednesday signed the pact last. She used her full name. The parchment wrinkled where her pen passed. The ink looked like a bruise healing. "Council convenes before the ceremony," Bianca said. "We set our terms. We tell the board how this will go." Wednesday nodded, as if she enjoyed democracy. She didn't. She respected it. A different animal. After the students dispersed, Bianca and Wednesday remained among the carnivorous plants that pretended innocence. The greenhouse creaked, wood relaxing in a heat it had stopped trusting. "You planned to burn me," Wednesday said. "It wasn't an accusation, it was an inventory." "If you become the house," Bianca said. "Yes." "Define become," Wednesday said. "When you start deciding our lives without asking whether we want to live them," Bianca replied. "When you mistake our consent for your inevitability, when you confuse the wolf for your wisdom." Wednesday considered. "Fair." Bianca studied her, the way a hunter studies wind. Enid, she said softly, and stopped. Say it, Wednesday said. You didn't ask her, Bianca said. Not about the first ritual, not about the second. Final rule, Yoko said, sudden. No vow without an exit. There is an exit, Mirror Wednesday said, and her voice had the kindness of a torture device well maintained. She can take it back the moment she decides to burn down the house. The house hummed. It did not contradict. That will do, Bianca said low. Make it count. Wednesday lifted the pawn. In the glass, her reflection did the same. They did not touch glass. They touched air that had learned to pretend it was solid. The pawn met its twin, and home found home. Stay, Wednesday said again, and this time it was not to Enid. It was to her own bright, vicious, impossible capacity to love. The part that had made her save a b-boy. The part that had held a werewolf's wrist and chosen to become a window for something wild to keep her safe. The part that had hated pianos because they were obvious and loved typewriters because they made music in defiance of expectation. It left her. You cannot describe a subtraction like that without resorting to lies. It did not hurt. It did not feel good. It was an arrhythmia corrected, sudden clarity that came with a silence like a museum at night, soft and unsuitable for children. She swayed and did not fall. Enid did the falling for her, knees hitting wood with a sound the hall would hear in dreams for years. The candles bowed. The students forgot to breathe. The board exhaled in triumph, having misunderstood everything. Mirror Wednesday held something invisible and precious. She pressed both hands to the glass, and the glass swallowed the shape like a tongue reclaiming sugar. Collateral accepted, she said formal. Bianca stepped back as if a wave had shoved her. Eugene sobbed, an apology to a world that kept accepting sacrifices with thanks. Yoko said nothing. Her silence was an elegy. Enid climbed to her feet. She took Wednesday's face in trembling hands. "Do you feel?" she asked, and could not finish. Wednesday looked at her. She saw symmetry, anatomy, tactics. She saw the outline of a person she would protect because it was an instruction she had given herself. She did not feel the urge to memorize the slope of Enid's smile. She did not feel the cruel impulse to push just to see if Enid would pull back and then forgive her for it. She felt usefulness, precision, an absence that fit like a glove. "I feel efficient," she said. Enid's breath broke. For the first time since the amphitheater, the wolf in Wednesday stirred not as guardian, but as grief. It rose, padded once across the space where love had lived, sniffed, and lay down with its head on its paws, watching the door that no longer existed. The house sighed, satisfied and curious. "Raven," it said, "fully hers now. Let us begin." Wednesday sat taller. She turned to the board. "Proceed," she said, voice smooth as stone in a river. Bianca watched. Her eyes were dry. "Very well," she whispered to no one and to the entire school. "Then the war starts now." Enid stepped back from Wednesday as if stepping back from a cliff. She did not leave. She stood at Wednesday's right hand anyway, because vows do not vanish when the heart that made them is locked behind glass. She would stand there until she learned how to stand there without bleeding. In the mirror, the amphitheater's fire cooled to iron. Mirror Wednesday smiled, sadder now, or mercifully honest. "Final act soon," she mouthed. Above them, outside them, the weather changed again. Power prefers ceremonies. Rebellion prefers weather. Storms muscled over Nevermore by afternoon, clouds bruised dark, wind peeling leaves from oaks like confetti at a funeral. The board insisted the schedule held. The house agreed, amused. Bianca smiled without humor and sent messages that weren't letters. A look, a nod, a hand on her shoulder. The council met in the greenhouse, then vanished into the school like smoke that knew every locked room. Wednesday didn't vanish. She moved openly, corridors parting, as if afraid to wrinkle her. She checked doorways, counted breaths, read the building the way surgeons read vital signs. The wolf inside her paced without raising dust. It understood the day would put its teeth to use. Enid walked at her right, a half-pace behind, a habit she hated and couldn't unlearn. She carried nothing in her hands. She had learned to keep her palms empty when she wanted to hold too much. "You can still call it off," Enid said, miserably brave. "I can," Wednesday said. "I won't." "Then promise me something else," Enid said. "When it turns, because it will, choose people over the house." "I already did," Wednesday replied. "That is why the house belongs to me, not the other way around." "You gave it your—" Enid's voice buckled on the word. She steadied it. "You gave it something it didn't deserve." "I gave it collateral," Wednesday corrected. "Collateral can be reclaimed." "How?" Enid demanded. Wednesday did not answer. She was not certain. Certainty was a luxury of the sentimental. By nightfall, the hall was dressed again. Candles wore their best fire. The mirror gleamed like a threat, polished for guests. The council took their bench. The board assembled. Faculty held their breaths. Students smelled of rain and questions. Bianca didn't go to her seat. She stood in the aisle and let silence settle like dust on a sacrificial table. Then she spoke. "We convene under our pact," she said. "We proceed by our rules, and if the House refuses, we enact the exit clause." A board member scoffed. "There is no exit clause." "There's always an exit," Bianca replied. "Sometimes it's a door, sometimes it's a match." Wednesday took her place without needing to be announced. The chair wasn't a throne now. It was a witness box. She sat. The wolf raised its head. The house pressed its palm to the base of her skull, intimate as sin. "Raven," it said inside her, "be still." Wednesday smiled the way knives do. "Make me," she didn't say, because consent is not a spell you cast out loud. The eldest board member lifted a hand. "Begin." The chandeliers died obediently. Candles flamed lower. The mirror lifted, obliging as a predator, humoring a child. Mirror Wednesday stepped into place. Double pupils, the serenity of a storm that knows the forecast ends in its favor. "Witnesses," Bianca said. Eugene took his corner. Yoko took hers. Bianca claimed the third like a blade claims a sheath. Willingly, temporarily. "The truth," Bianca said. Wednesday faced the room. "I gave the house my capacity to love Enid Sinclair," she said. "It holds it in collateral against my tyranny." Murmurs, a few sobs. The word love is a torch and a trap. The room burned and stumbled. Enid stared straight ahead, her face a cathedral whose stained glass had been turned backward to protect the pictures. "Proceed," the eldest board member said, too quickly. "Not yet," Bianca returned, and the room remembered why it trusted her. Rotation of power. The council chairs with the raven. "This is ceremony, not governance," a board member snapped. "It's both," Bianca said, "or it's nothing. Choose." They chose convenience, as tyrants do when confronted with rules that don't flatter them. "Fine," the eldest sighed. "Council may remain silent." "Recorded," Yoko said. "Neutral doesn't mean obedient." The first movement of the ritual moved like a chess opening. Predictable elegance, calculated menace. The mirror showed the amphitheater. The iron ring glowed. The house breathed through Wednesday with a rhythm older than law. And then Bianca broke the game. "Enact Clause 4, she said, rotation, and sat down on the throne. The hall gasped. The chair did not reject her. It considered. It allowed. Wednesday did not lunge. She did not even blink. The wolf inside her went very still, the way wolves do when a rival steps into territory and the better choice is patience. Bianca gripped the armrests and looked at the mirror. "Offer denied," she told the house. "You do not own her heart. You simply hold it. You do not own this school. You simply shelter it. You do not own us. We breathe without your permission." The house replied by dimming the candles until the dark thickened enough to stir with your hands. "Children," it said, fond and fatal. "Exit clause," Bianca said, voice low. "If the house refuses shared rule, the house burns." The board surged to their feet. Outrageous. Expel her. Remove. Wednesday stood. The sound stopped. Authority doesn't shout. It arranges. Silence. "Pact rules," Wednesday said, level. "Witnesses state the violation." Eugene, "Compulsion." Yoko, "Bad faith." Bianca, "Theft." Wednesday faced the mirror. "Return the collateral," she said, and her voice wore iron like jewelry. "Or we light the match." In the glass, Mirror Wednesday tilted her head, sympathy and arithmetic in the same gesture. "Do you know what you're asking?" she murmured. "Yes," Wednesday said. "You're asking to destroy your cathedral," the mirror said, "and the bell it rings in you." "Yes," Wednesday repeated, "because duplicity is for people with less efficient vocabularies." Mirror Wednesday smiled with a holiness that made enemies of everyone who had ever called her a monster. "Then you've earned the truth," she said. "Collateral can return only at one price." Bianca's jaw set. "Name it." "Burn the house," the mirror said softly, "with a witness inside." The room howled. "No, never. Impossible." The board called it melodrama. Faculty called it protocol gone mad. Students called it every name you call necessity before you accept it. Enid didn't call it anything. She looked at Wednesday as if names were the nails you refused to hammer into a coffin because somewhere under the lid the person you loved might still be breathing. "Define witness," Wednesday said. "Someone the house recognizes as capable of seeing it," the mirror said. "Someone who can testify that it burned." Enid stepped forward. Bianca grabbed her wrist. "Don't. I'm the obvious choice," Enid said. "It took my wolf. I felt it more than anyone." "No," Wednesday said. "You are the one person who cannot be inside. If you die, my collateral becomes a monument I will never allow anyone to visit." The mirror liked that answer. It warmed. "Then who?" it asked. Wednesday turned to the room, heard the board's hearts trip, heard faculty think of families and politely rearrange their bravery, heard students almost volunteer and then stop because they were not finished being children yet. She looked at Eugene, who would say yes and mean it and weep through it, at Ajax, who would try, at Yoko, who would keep her word and her secrets both, at Xavier, who would draw an exit with charcoal and believe in it hard enough to walk through. She looked at Bianca and saw the answer. "No," Bianca said before Wednesday opened her mouth. "Yes," Wednesday said. "I am more useful out here," Bianca snapped. "You need me to pull everyone out when you commit to the stupidly noble thing you're already planning." "You are the rival witness," Wednesday said. "It must be you. The House will listen to your testimony because it wants to punish me and trusts your knife to find the right place." Bianca's eyes went black with understanding. "Damn you," she whispered, "and thank you." Enid's fingers knotted in Wednesday's sleeve. "There's another way." "There isn't," Wednesday said gently, which for her was a catastrophe. Not one that returns what I gave. Enid shook her head, tears furious. Keep it. Keep the house. Keep, she choked, keep everything but you. I find myself an inefficient use of resources, Wednesday said. Bianca squeezed Enid's hand once, hard. I'll get her back, she promised, a vow so dangerous it sounded like poetry. Whatever her means on the other side. Proceed, Wednesday told the mirror. The hall unfolded into movement, choreographed chaos. Students shepherded toward exits, faculty forced into competence, board members discovering their rings didn't open doors that had decided to be honest. The council stayed. Wednesday, Bianca, Enid, Eugene, Yoko, and Xavier took the secret stairs. The building guided them with lights that flickered like convulsions. The deeper they went, the older the air tasted. The amphitheater waited with torches already lit in that bruised flame that hadn't learned discretion. The iron ring thrummed. The house found its voice. Raven. Witness, Bianca said, stepping into the circle. I am Bianca Barclay. I will see you and tell them what I saw. The house inhaled, amused and wary. Beautiful knife, it said to her. Stay sharp. Wednesday turned to Enid. She took both of Enid's hands and placed something small into one palm. The enamel paw-print pin, hidden in her hem, gleamed with stupid courage. A key, Wednesday said. If I fail, use it to open me. Break the glass upstairs. Call me by the name you love. If it doesn't work. If it doesn't, Enid asked, wrecked. Then remember me as a problem you enjoyed solving, Wednesday said. You're not a problem, Enid whispered. I am 1,000, Wednesday said, and let go. Bianca moved to the center of the ring. The mirror rose from the floor without being there. Its surface showed not the amphitheater, but the hall above. Students pressing toward doors, teachers pretending order, board members pressing papers to their chests like bandages. The glass rippled, then solidified into something ancient wearing a modern face. Ready? Mirror Wednesday asked. No, Bianca said. Yes. Exit clause enacted, Yoko said, because law is a comfort and someone had to say it. Wednesday took her place at the edge of the ring. The wolf inside her stood alert, ears forward, the posture of a creature that knows the danger is exactly the size of the room and that the only way out is through. House, Wednesday said. Last chance. Raven, it replied, affectionate as a cut. Begin. The fire didn't start with torch or tinder. It started with a sound, low, thrumming, the note you hear right before things fall that shouldn't. A seam opened in the iron and light poured out, not like flame, but like memory set loose. Stone glowed from the inside, slow and catastrophic. The air tasted like coins. Bianca did not move. She watched the light climb the pillars, watched it find the founders' faces and make them into saints of something unholy. She watched the ring's notches fill with a black fire that gave off no heat until it did, sudden, searing, turning breath into a task. Testimony, she said aloud, because she would not die without finishing her sentences. The house burns. The house answered by reaching for her, not with hands, with history. It pulled at her mother's voice, at the training that had told her love is a debt, and debt is romantic. It pulled at the part of Bianca that liked ruling because it kept her from needing. It tried to make her sit. Bianca smiled. I've already sat in worse chairs, she said, and stayed standing. Flame found the ceiling, ran along iron bones, dropped in molten commas that sizzled on stone and spelled nothing because the alphabet had burned. Heat shoved the room into honesty. Xavier stumbled. Eugene pulled him up, gentler than fear. Yoko's hair singed, and she didn't flinch. Enid swayed. The wolf that used to live under her skin woke and remembered it had a new address. It pressed against Wednesday's ribs, frantic. "I know," Wednesday said to herself. To the building. "Hunt with me." She stepped into the ring. The fire didn't burn her. It parted. The house recognized a daughter who had decided to kill her parent in the most respectful way possible. The wolf surged up her spine, into her throat, behind her eyes, vision sharpening, heat mapping, tactics rearranging. She was not a girl. She was a vector. "Where?" she asked the wolf. "There," the wolf answered, not in words, in pulls, in angles, in hunger aimed. Wednesday moved to the pillar with the calmest founder's face. She pressed her palm to carved stone. "Return it," she said. "Collateral." Stone split. Inside the pillar behind iron mesh, something glowed like a heart left on a windowsill. It wasn't a heart. It was a shape you only recognize when yours is missing. Wednesday slid the dagger in, twisted. The mesh surrendered. "Now," Mirror Wednesday said from the glass, urgency bleeding through perfect poise. "Bianca." "I see it," Bianca answered, voice smoking. "Eyewitness." Wednesday reached. The glow refused her. Of course it did. Love does not go home with strangers, and at this moment she had made herself one. She withdrew her hand and turned to Enid. "Key," Wednesday said. Enid didn't hesitate. She pressed the stupid glittering pin into Wednesday's palm. It cut her. It should. She drove it into the seam she had opened, felt it catch on a nerve the house had hidden in stone, and pry. The glow sighed. It spilled into her hand like warmth remembered. A lash of fire snapped across the ring. It struck Bianca. She staggered, caught herself, laughed once. The kind of sound you make when you've been promised pain, and the promise arrives right on time. "Testimony!" she rasped. "It burns!" The ceiling cracked. A beam fell. Eugene screamed a warning. Xavier yanked him aside. Yoko shoved both with strength that refuted her size. The mirror shuddered. In the glass, the hall above bloomed with smoke. "Now, Wednesday," Mirror Wednesday urged, voice tight. "Choose." There it was, the choice. The one the mirror had pre-written. The one Wednesday had sharpened her days around. She could take the glow, the love, and swallow it. Burn the house, return upstairs with a heart stitched back in and a school smoldering to ash. Or she could do what she had always secretly wanted, change the terms of the story. "Exit clause," Wednesday said, giddy with a particular cruelty called invention. No vow without an exit. She lifted the glow, but not to her chest. To the mirror. "Collateral goes back to escrow," she said. "You held my love. Now you hold me." Mirror Wednesday's eyes widened, a rare thing. "What are you?" "Split the debt," Wednesday said. "Keep a version of me to balance your accounts. Give the rest back." "That is not how," the house began. "It is now," Wednesday said, and pressed the glow to the glass. The mirror took it. The glass rippled like a living mouth accepting communion. For a heartbeat, the amphitheater contained two Wednesdays, one with a wolf and a burnt outline where a heart had been, one made of reflection and oath. The fire howled. "Bianca!" Yoko shouted, a warning and a goodbye in one. Bianca swayed and stayed. "Eyewitness," she repeated, hoarse. "She changes the terms." The mirror cracked, not outward, inward, like a chrysalis. The glass collapsed without shattering, folding itself into a shape that stepped onto stone. A second Wednesday stood in the ring. She was identical and utterly different. Her pupils were not doubled. Her gaze had gravity, where the others had edges. She looked at Enid, and a sound like relief escaped her throat, a sob that refused to be named as such. She looked at Bianca, and gratitude made her dangerous. "Hello," she said to the first Wednesday. "We made a mess." "Obviously," Crown Wednesday said, the one with the wolf, the one the house had been training. "Clean it." The house screamed, not aloud, not in any way human voices can meet. The pillars split. The ceiling descended in furious, fiery inches. The amphitheater shuddered like an animal, deciding whether to die angry or dignified. "Out!" Bianca commanded. Yoko grabbed Xavier. Eugene grabbed Yoko. Enid reached for both Wednesdays and stopped, helpless and exalted. Crown Wednesday, the one with iron in her mouth, pushed Mirror Wednesday, the one with the heart, toward the stairs. "Take them," she told Enid. "Get them up." Enid didn't move. "Come with me." Crown Wednesday smiled just enough to break bone. "There must be a witness," she said. "Bianca is the witness," Enid insisted. "Bianca is the knife," Crown Wednesday said. "Knives are for killing or cutting bonds. Today she's already used on both. She needs to live." Bianca snarled, a sound she had learned from a friend she pretended not to love. "Don't make me watch you die. I won't forgive you for the paperwork." "Then look away," Crown Wednesday said, and touched Enid's cheek once with a hand that smelled like smoke and vows. "Go." Enid went. She dragged Love Wednesday with her, hands, breath, heartbeat, upstairs that tried to forget themselves, through corridors that folded like ribs. Yoko and the boys cleared the path with a competence that tends to get ignored until it saves you. Bianca ran last, cursing in 3 languages, promising revenge against architecture. Crown Wednesday remained. She turned to the ring and let the wolf all the way out. It wasn't a transformation. It was an alignment. Her body stayed a girl's. Braid, boots, bruise-colored dress, but her stance changed into the geometry of the hunt. She walked the ring's circumference and read the fire, as if it were text. She found the breath of the house and put her hands around it. "You do not get to keep my collapses," she told it. "I keep my own." The house tried to bargain. "Raven." "I am not your raven," she said. "I am your ruins." She took the pawn from her pocket, white-hot now, then white-cold, then exactly the temperature of a decision, and pressed it into the seam of the last pillar. The symbol, circle, line, blazed. "Stay," she said for the 3rd time that season. The house obeyed. It stayed, and the fire rushed inward, not outward, collapsing the amphitheater into itself like a star that had finally understood it couldn't be both gravity and grace. Stone folded, iron bent. History curdled into a singularity with a Wednesday's small hand on its throat. Above, the hall bucked. Enid stumbled. Mirror Wednesday caught her, eyes not leaving the smoke boiling under the doors. Bianca counted heads like inventory and shoved them out into rain that arrived as if it had been waiting on the other side of the sky with a bucket. The ground shook once, twice. Then the house sighed, and the sigh became a roar, and the roar became silence. Students cried. Faculty prayed. The board looked for clauses that covered acts of God and found none. Rain fell as if it approved. Enid turned to the door. When it opened, not politely, it opened the way wounds split when the body gives up the argument. Crown Wednesday stepped out of the dark, soot-limbed dress torn where stone had tried to keep a souvenir. Her eyes were ordinary and wrong. Then they shifted, pupils doubling, then settling, then becoming a gaze Enid had learned as both home and hazard. At her shoulder something trotted out, the wolf. Not a wolf. The wolf that had lived in Enid, then in Wednesday. It was not flesh. It was shadow, and smoke and muscle made of command. It shook itself once, spraying rain that hissed when it struck stone. It looked at Enid with recognition. It looked at the second Wednesday with possessiveness. It looked at the ruins with hunger. Bianca's mouth opened. "What did you—" "Change the terms," Crown Wednesday said. She nodded toward Mirror Wednesday, the one who had Enid's hand clenched in hers. "You wanted an exit. There she is." Mirror Wednesday stepped forward. She was tired, in the way people are when they finish tearing out a stitch with their teeth. She reached for Crown Wednesday. They didn't touch. They stood close enough to feel heat and memory. "Merge?" Mirror Wednesday asked, soft. It wasn't easy. It wasn't mystical. It wasn't even beautiful. It was administrative. Two columns reconcile, two ledgers agree, two versions of a girl refuse to spend the rest of their lives writing footnotes. Crown Wednesday took a breath that tasted like smoke and rain, and Enid's shampoo, and Bianca's perfume, and the metallic clean of the knives. "Yes," she said. They stepped toward each other. The wolf moved between them. Low growl. A warning. "Let her," Enid said, speaking to the animal, to the building, to the weather. The wolf looked at Enid, then at Wednesday, both of her, and stepped aside with a monarch's grace. It padded to the edge of the ruined steps and sat, watchful. The two Wednesdays touched palms. Memory flowed, not a river, a ledger of debts paid and unpaid. The typewriter songs, the beehive buzzing like a cathedral. The first time Enid hugged her so hard Wednesday's ribs negotiated a truce with her spine. The mirror's offer, the amphitheater's appetite, the taste of pastry and blood, the moment love left and the silence it made, the moment love returned and the noise it promised to make again. When it was done, there was one Wednesday. She swayed. Enid reached, and Wednesday reached back without calculation or cruelty or strategy. Their hands met. Enid's breath hitched and then steadied on Wednesday's shoulder, a human metronome. "Hi," Enid said, laughing, crying. "Your hair is ridiculous," Wednesday said, voice wrecked and correct. "Welcome back," Bianca said, and the sound of it was a mercy weaponized. The board gathered, as boards do, to attempt to own what they hadn't prevented. "Miss Addams," the eldest began, and Wednesday lifted her hand. "No," she said. They stopped. "The house is gone," Wednesday continued. "You may build another. I will not sit in it." She looked at the students. Rain turned their faces into saints and suspects. "We will write new pact on wet paper and dry it with our breath." Bianca took the parchment they'd written in the greenhouse and held it high, rain bleeding the ink into something worse and better. "Council stands," she said. "Rotation stands. Witnesses stand." Eugene coughed water and pride. Yoko nodded once, which for her was a sonnet. Xavier sketched without charcoal, air-recognizing line. Enid squeezed Wednesday's hand. "And us?" she whispered. "Do we stand?" Wednesday looked at her. She felt the house like a ghost in her bones. Gone, not gone. Replaced by a ruin she owned and would not sell. She felt the wolf curl at the edge of her mind like a guard dog with its own keys. She felt love, not idealized, not sainted. A knife she had polished and put back where it belonged. "We do," she said, "but not where we stood before." Enid nodded, brave enough to accept new architecture. "Okay," she said. "Okay." A new sound rolled across campus, a low, rolling growl like thunder with fangs. Heads turned. On the ruined steps, the wolf stood, ears pricked at the tree line. From the forest, something answered. Students went very quiet. Rain forgot to fall for a second. The sound came again, closer, massive, wrong. Bianca's eyes narrowed. What did the house keep in the ground apart from us? Debts, Wednesday said, and things that didn't like paying them. The wolf looked back at Wednesday. It wasn't asking permission. It was inquiring about strategy. Not yet, Wednesday told it. We reconvene, we count, we make rules that fit what we are now. The board tried again. Miss Addams, custodianship, responsibility, insurance. Silence, Wednesday said, and the world obliged. She climbed onto the broken step and looked at what used to be a school and now was a battlefield that would need flowers and new schedules. This is Nevermore, she said. It is not a house anymore. It is us. She turned to Enid. About the bakery, she added, deadpan. Enid blinked, clueless with relief. What? Saturdays, Wednesday said. We try. If the world doesn't end on Friday. Enid laughed, and the laugh sounded like rain deciding to keep falling because the alternative was drought. Bianca handed Wednesday the sodden pact. Wednesday signed again, ink bleeding, name a bruise that would heal into a scar. The wolf padded down the steps and into the trees. It didn't look back. Guardianship doesn't seek thanks. It seeks something worth protecting. From the forest, the answering growl came a third time, closer, impatient. Wednesday looked at her counsel, at Enid, at a student body that had earned a legend in a single night. Season's not over, she said. The wind turned, the lanterns drowned. Somewhere, in what remained of the amphitheater's depth, a mirror shard flickered to life, one last glint of house, storing an image no one had seen yet, a second chair in a room that didn't exist, waiting. Shocking twists are not lightning, they are weather patterns. Behind Wednesday, the ruins steamed. Before her, the forest shook itself awake. Let's write the next part, she said, and led them into the storm.